Dr. Noble, how was your week?
Everything's been good. We've been very, very busy in my laboratory and at the university. I'm sure everyone has seen that UNC Chapel Hill has had its
Yes.
ups and downs in the last couple of weeks, so we'll just leave it at that. But it's been a great week.
Good, good. Mary Cheatham, how do you feel about Chapel Hill in the news?
I know, I'm telling you.
Oh, goodness.
I know it. I mean, I think that I have so much respect for and compassion for the people who are having to make these decisions.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just not a right or wrong, and it's so complicated. And I know all the parents of these kids who they sent them up there, and now they're coming home. I mean, it's just, I just appreciate. I feel like everybody is showing each other a lot of patience and grace, and that's really the only way we're going to get through this.
Because we've never been through anything like this before. So, yeah, definitely grace is the word here.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. It's
absolutely.
interesting. And so, guys, as folks are hopping on and joining us, good morning. It's Friday morning. We have made it through the week, almost. And we have got Dr. Rachel Noble here. And Dr. Noble joins us. She is with the UNC Institute of Marine Sciences, which is right here in Morehead City. It's been here for 70 years. It is, of course, affiliated with UNC Chapel Hill, but it is, as Dr. Noble was just pointing out to Meg and to me before we went live with our video here, it is it's where folks come and they're here for the long term. So it's not kind of an outpost where people are in and out. So Dr. Noble has been here for what did you say, 15 years, Dr. Noble?
Almost 20.
Nice.
Almost 20. So there you go. So and Dr. Noble just has a huge amount of knowledge and has studied. She's a microbiologist who has studied all different types of things, and she's going to share with us a little bit about her background. And then what we thought would be the most helpful to share with you guys today is, as we're all heading back to school, kind of some practical tips for figuring out, it feels like that, for a while there, we could almost bury our head in the sand. And as long as we kind of stayed at home and kept to ourselves, kind of pretend like maybe COVID wasn't right outside all of our doors. But I think just to be able to best protect ourselves and our families. So Dr. Noble, thank you for being here. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yes, we're so glad. So tell us a little bit about kind of your background and the research that you've done, just a little overview of that, because golly, it sounds like it is wide and deep.
I actually started the majority of my research or my graduate career. I started working on viruses out in Southern California, if you can believe it.
Wow.
I went to graduate school in Los Angeles. I was born and raised in Pennsylvania, but went to California for graduate school.
Wow.
Just jumped in the car and drove west. I spent about 11 or 12 years in Southern California, but I really found myself immersed in work on viruses that make people sick in water. And so I finished my degree at USC, the other USC, University of Southern California, not South Carolina.
Right.
Began to interview for positions, and UNC Chapel Hill was an excellent fit, and I've been here ever since. So there's a lot of similarities, but there's also a lot of things about our coast that, as we see the North Carolina coast being developed and more people coming here, it actually harkens back to Southern California in the early 2000s. Now it's very developed, but there was a part of that was really rapidly going on, and I see that same kind of growth and the benefits and the advantages, but also a bit of the pains. And those are the kinds of things that I work on. I work on the water system, drinking water, wastewater, which is in our world, it's simply the same thing mostly as what people call sewage. And very, very glamorous topics.
I love that, Dr. Noble. So since we've got you here, I want to dive right in and just kind of pick your brain a little bit, right? And so I think what I want to start with is, let's just go ahead and get the mask topic out of the way. I know we're all kind of over it. We're up to our eyeballs in mask talk, but kind of what is your take on the importance of wearing masks and on these kids wearing masks? I mean, where do you land on that topic?
So I'd say that has a couple of levels.
Okay.
First, black and white, I believe, in my view, is wear a mask. By wearing a mask, you are indicating as an individual that you are interested in contributing to the big picture global battle against a virus that simply does not care where you were born, what color you are. It doesn't care. It really doesn't care. And all we can do is we can wear a mask to protect others from a possibility that we could have been previously exposed and maybe asymptomatically infected. So the first is just wear a mask.
Sure.
Because it's been demonstrated for decades. Certain societies have been doing this for decades, and they have been doing it and seeing success with an array of different types of pathogens or things that can make you sick. The second, though, is that not all of them are created equal. So cloth masks are very comfortable for kids. Neck gaiters and neck buffs, they're generally comfortable for people. You see them, especially people that are outdoors, they kind of wear them kind of as a mix of sun protection and virus protection. They've actually been demonstrated to be worse than no mask at all. And not just one study, but in multiple studies. And that's because of the way that they trap and kind of allow the sharing of those air particles. So once again, you're not actually protecting your own self from virus coming in. You are protecting others generally, in the majority of cases, from your own respiratory droplets from getting out into the environment. But if everybody in your room does it, the room that you're in, the store that you're in, the situation that you're in, it works. But if they don't, then that's where it breaks down a little bit. So the second part of this is that not all of the masks are created equal. Right. And there are some types of masks, like N95 masks, that are much more effective than other types of masks as far as being in high-risk situations.
Sure.
So,
okay.
So
like if you're talking to me, right? If I'm I live here in town. I have kids that are in school. If I'm sending them to school, what kind of mask? I mean, are you? So you're telling me don't do the neck gaiter because that's been shown not to be effective, and so instead just to do a mask. Would you do for your children? Would you do a cloth mask? Would you try and locate an N95? I mean, what type of masks do you think are the best?
For school, I think a cloth mask is really beneficial because it's comfortable. Once you find one or can order a few more of those that work for your child size-wise, it's comfortable for them. It's not overly restrictive. It allows them to breathe with a little bit of activity. So that's an important thing I'll come back to, that a KN95 or an N95 is not going to allow you to do.
Right.
That for a long-term situation, a lot of people also have a problem with that metal bridge on the nose that's found in all N95 masks, which is why they're so effective. So the point is that you're trading comfort for longevity in terms of how it's being worn. So for a long-term use, I would say if you're talking about multiple days of school in a row, I would focus on a cloth mask, but you really, really need to pay attention to the material. A cloth mask should never look, to me, the fashionable ones are fine, but make sure it's made out of a tight-knit material. You care more about how it works than how it looks.
Sure.
If it looks like a sweater or if it looks like a loose knit, and if you can see holes through it whenever you hold it up to the light, if you're just kind of taking a look at it and you can actually see kind of the pinholes coming through, it's not tight enough. It's not tight enough wound to be able to protect you.
That's a great test. So if you're ever thinking about it, if you're in the market for a new mask, holding it up to some light will give you a good indication of how well it'll work. That's smart.
So and then there's masks that have at least double ply and 3-ply of cloth.
Okay.
So really, some of the cheaper ones you'll find in the store, really they're almost like an old t-shirt fabric with 1-ply, and they might be cheap, but you're going to get what you pay for, and they're not going to be very effective. So the thing to remind people about this virus, these are very, very small. These are very small particles. So they're roughly about 100 times smaller than the hole or the pore size on an N95 mask. So the virus itself. So if you think about a cloth mask, it's even worse than that.
Sure.
Yeah.
So. Okay.
I think that's really helpful, and I really like the fact, I appreciate, Dr. Noble, it's almost like you have kids.
I do.
Which I know you do, but I mean, that you appreciate the fact that the point is, what are they really going to wear and keep on their faces, right? Yeah. I mean, and you're right, this is not if you're running into a fire and running back out of it, what are you going to put on? This is if you're going to be there day in and day out. So, and then, so remember, when they come home with the masks, I mean, how often do we need to be washing or disinfecting the masks, and what does that look like? How do you do that?
Well, the first thing I would suggest to people is make sure that hands are washed. Hand sanitizer, it could be both. That's what I would do, hand sanitizer and hand washing, and then have them take off the mask. So an example is if you pick them up at school and now you're actually sanitizing the hands before those go on the mask and go on the face, because inevitably you take off the mask and something's going to have been itchy, and now you've got those hands that have been all over the school for the last couple of hours actually taking off the mask. So that'd be the first thing, is to make sure that the hands are clean before that is done. The second is to make sure that the mask is put somewhere. If it's a disposable mask, just make sure it's put in a place where it's not going to be on the kitchen table or kitchen counter, for example. And the other part of that is that if it's going to be washed, make sure it just gets into the right spot. So just have a place for it to go immediately. And allow, kids can come home and do any of a number of different things. They can wash their face, or, whatever makes them a little bit more comfortable. What you're trying to do is you're trying to ensure over time that kids and adults alike are trying to touch their faces as little as possible. Sure. So that's really the goal. And then as far as laundry is concerned, a lot of people make a big deal out of laundry. But this is a virus that's actually making people sick generally by either inhalation or making it into your mouth. So I'd argue that the likelihood of being able to kind of get an exposure from a shirt that might even have just a virus or two on it would be very, very highly unlikely. So it's the hard surfaces that we worry about more, not the cloth surfaces, because the viruses they're kind of sticky, believe it or not, so they tend to attach onto those things and not come off easily. Still, I would make sure that you have a clearly, some kind of a process for getting your dirty laundry and getting it washed, and soap and water is an excellent weapon against coronavirus.
Sure. So speaking of laundry or things that your kids are wearing in school, is there anything they should be doing to their backpacks or their bags or anything like that? Or again, is it something that's very highly unlikely for the virus to transport into someone from a backpack?
I think it's really, I think focus on the things that represent the risk and the biggest battles. And so for the backpacks, once again, it's just kind of like the old, you've heard it a million times, the arguments about putting purses, on the kitchen counter, or putting a purse, on, people have different superstitions about places to put a purse. Me personally, I think the place for a backpack from school is on the floor. And, when you go into the backpack, you retrieve your items. Now, maybe you're finished with school for the week, and you go in and you take all of the books out of your backpack, and now you're ready to do some of your virtual work that might be assigned. And now those books are sitting on your desktop, and, your hands are washed, and now you're sitting down to work. But certainly you don't have your backpack sitting on your pillow or on your bed, or you have kind of an idea. And this, for small kids, it might take a little bit of doing. Maybe hang it on the hook down in a mud room, and maybe someone has to help them a little bit. But, kind of gently explaining why, in general, you don't have to be explicit about it. Just, that's been on the floor of your school. Have you looked at the bottom of your best friend's shoes lately? That's what
Right.
Your backpack has some of that kind of thing on it. And we just want to make sure that that's not on the kitchen table.
Smart.
It doesn't have to be a long, diatribe about, how, but the stress that's created about the virus. It's just kind of can be a more general thought process of everybody thinking a little bit more proactively about hygiene.
I think that's so smart, and that's something that I really don't think about, about setting things on a table or setting. And Dr. Noble, what you just said about the masks, that's so interesting, because I kind of just take them off and put them in my pocketbook, or put them in my bag, or not thinking about, am I putting it back in the same place every time, in between washes. So I think just being really mindful about how you handle that. And I think the hand sanitizer thing, that's so interesting. I've heard some people say, I've heard people question how good of a job the hand sanitizer really does in terms of, getting rid of those germs. But what I hear you saying is that it is effective.
Hand sanitizers are okay. If you find yourself using hand sanitizer all throughout the day, and you're thinking to yourself, "Oh, this is good," then think twice, because every single time that you come in contact with a person or use the restroom or use a public space or touch, certain items that may have had a number of people interacting with them, so, maybe a door handle or things like that, washing your hands, there's no replacement for washing your hands.
Right.
There are so many different arguments for this. I don't want to get into the details, but the first is that water in and of itself, in the majority of our systems, the water that you're going to get out of the tap to wash your hands should either be hot or it will have slightly a bit of chlorine in it because it's from a chlorinated drinking water system.
Mm-hmm.
Both of those things are going to work to obliterate the coronavirus very quickly. And second of all, when you use hand sanitizer, in some cases, if you're not using it properly, if it's not made properly, or heaven forbid, if you were actually sold a product that was not made to specifications, all you're doing is rubbing things around. You're not actually getting rid of them. And if you use, just like an example, I've had kids before, use food coloring or use, other things to kind of approximate all of the different surfaces that they've touched.
Right.
And you would be amazed how hand sanitizer is just kind of shifting things around and not really doing much about getting rid of what you think might be on your skin.
So what I hear you saying, I think, is that hand sanitizer is a good stopgap. Like if you're getting in the car and you want to take your mask off, use hand sanitizer, take it off, and then as soon as you get home, wash your hands.
Absolutely.
Right, so
every single time you return back to the house, unless you're drinking water well or your drinking water is down, I would say go and wash, preferably in a downstairs location where you don't, or in a easy to access location, maybe a laundry room, where you don't have to walk through the rest of the house in which to do it because you're going to get distracted, or you may actually just kind of touch door handles and so forth. It's just a general argument, but the same thing can be said for over time. As you come into your work, I walk into work in the morning and I open my office door, I go back and I typically wash my hands. The bathroom is relatively close, I guess, whenever I am in the office, and use that opportunity throughout the day. It's just a way of training yourself, really.
Well, I know it has become a habit for me, but I'm sure so many other people throughout this whole pandemic have become very aware of how dirty their hands feel after they go to the grocery store or pick up their groceries or do something and then come back home. I mean, I feel crazy if I don't wash my hands now when I get home. And that's something that, not a blessing in disguise, but I hope that's something that continues after all of this is over, because I mean, that's the easiest way to keep things as clean as you can at your house. That's so simple.
I would hope there's actually a thought process that some of our other viral diseases and bacterial diseases might go down because people have improved their overall view on hygiene. I mean, this is basic.
That'd be great.
Maybe there's a silver lining. Maybe MRSA infections in children will actually go down because people use soap and water more often.
Yeah, I love it. That's so good. And I love the concept of saying when you walk in the house, this is the sink that you use and this is where we wash our hands. I think that's such a smart thing that I'm going to implement today. I love that. Yeah. Is there anything else, Dr. Noble, as far as, any kind of easy tips or anything that you would say to us, that we could be doing at home or wherever in order to help kind of slow the spread and to protect ourselves and our children?
Well, the first is, just trying to, in my overall view, trying to minimize, the level of stress about it. Just kind of come up with a plan that works for you and just kind of put that plan in place, but without a lot of discussion. These are, some of the use of disinfectants, for example. We get a lot of questions about the use of alcohol, the use of hydrogen peroxide, the use of bleach. Each of them have kind of an appropriate use in the home. But, just having everyone participate in the process of disinfecting. And, you have when your floor is dirty, when it's visibly dirty and it needs to be vacuumed and mopped. But then we also have a scenario where you're actually treating surfaces with a disinfectant to ensure that as people are coming and going through your home, that you're reducing the risk of transmitting something from one person to another person in the household. Just to having some of those, some of those materials available, not necessarily wipes because everyone wants wipes, but having spray bottles and making sure that everyone participates in the process of wiping down door handles and, going into high use areas and wiping down counters and so forth. You can really, you can talk a little bit about cleaning. That's important for everyone. And then you have the process of disinfecting. So it's often fun sometimes to think about it as a two-layered process. First, you're cleaning to make it look good, and to remove, surface dirt and visible dirt.
Right.
And then you're going through the home and you're basically removing some of the things that you think could be there. And it doesn't, it can be very short and it can be very easy. Alcohol spray for computers. Phones are always coming in and out of the house. They are some of the dirtiest items. Some people are taking their phones into, I don't know what high school will allow it at this point, probably not, but, kids or adults alike, just taking the phone into the bathroom, just, and whether, however it's being transported around. There are items that are, that we're bringing into our home where it's almost so autopilot that we don't recognize it. But as you begin to look around, for a while there, people were talking about disinfecting groceries. Now, if someone has packaged my groceries from a grocery store that I know is in a high risk area, or is in an area where the cases are increasing rapidly, I will wipe my groceries down, to when I'm bringing them into the house, or this process of kind of ensuring that materials are safe. So just bringing it into your everyday life, but not making it overly onerous and not feeling guilty if you don't do something. You can only do the best that you can. And as we all do that, we're going to reduce the risk. And the argument that I can say about the virus is that it's an exponential thing. If I am infected, and if I only infect one person, maybe someone in my household, but I could have had the potential to infect 10 because of lackadaisical kind of approaches, we want to slide that to the scale of only one. If I'm sick and I only infect one other person, the cases aren't going up. The cases are actually going to come down, or they're going to stay the same. And the reason why they're going to come down is because now we're actually it's not moving onward and expanding. That's the problem at the universities, is that they were seeing the cases go from small numbers in the 5s and 10s to the 10s and 100s. And they didn't want to see the next step. They didn't want to see the thousands. And that's across the board at universities and tightly knit institutions. So, we have to think about ways to bring those numbers down and protect people.
Right. And I think you're right. I think that is, to me, that's kind of the biggest takeaway, is stop and think about what is your plan in your home, right? What are the ways that you want to welcome your children back into your home from school? When you come back from the grocery store or from wherever it is that you've got to go during the day. What are the protocols that you want to put in place? The triggers where you say, when I walk in the door, this is what I do. And to your kids, when you walk in the door, this is what you do. Here's where the backpacks go. Here's where whatever you've had out in the day goes. And then here's how we all work together to disinfect our house, right, on an ongoing basis. And then you kind of move on, right? I mean, you can.
But if that doesn't happen in a day, it's a cumulative effort. And it's going to happen. It happens to me regularly. I get out and I pump gas and I completely forget to even think about it.
Right.
Because I'm just, doing it. And I know everyone has experienced it, where they're just on autopilot, kids and adults alike, because they're tired or they've had a long day. Yeah. So the masks and the washing of hands are the two very most important parts of this, because hands go to faces. At all ages. You can't just put that on kids. A lot of people like to, but hands go to faces. And so if you have a mask on and if you can't get to your face, then you're going to actually do a much better job of cutting down that other risk. And that's something that I forgot to mention earlier, is that people have a tendency, once they start to wear a mask, at first it feels uncomfortable, but they will get used to it. Just like wearing clothes and just like wearing shoes.
Yeah.
And we go all summer long wearing flip-flops, and then we have to put real shoes back on. It's uncomfortable at first, but you will get used to it, and it will help you not have to suffer the consequences of a COVID infection. And it's not pleasant. People suggest that there are people out there with mild conditions, but the majority of conditions that are coming to medical providers are very, very serious illness, and not something to be, kind of
Right.
thinking about lightly.
Well, I feel, yes. And I also feel like the things that you said in our chat today, people can literally take notes and write down the tips that you gave. You gave so many great lists and things that folks can do today. I know Mary Cheatham said she's going to implement the hand washing thing today. Obviously, I know you were washing your hands before, but you know what I'm saying.
The trigger, right? Right. Walk in the door, go to this thing, and wash your hands.
I really, really like that. So I know folks watching, and parents especially watching, are really gonna get a lot of value about what you said. So thank you so much for sharing all of that. But Dr. Noble, we have our final question to ask you before we sign off for the morning. This is a question that Mary Cheatham and we ask all of our guests on Coffee with MC, and it comes from a podcast that we both listen to called For the Love with Jen Hatmaker. It's very cute. And she asks all of her guests this question. So we want to ask you, Dr. Noble, what is saving your life right now? So in other words, what are you grateful for recently?
Wow, that's a great question.
It's not ours. I wish we could take credit.
I'll sit here as I look outdoors and say the great outdoors, and taking advantage of that.
Yeah.
But then the other answer to some people might expect from people who know me well is that there's ice hockey on TV. It's not going to last very long. It'll only last us a couple more weeks as we get through the playoffs, but these were the playoffs from last spring.
Yep.
That we never got to see, but I'm a huge hockey fan. So.
And you're from Pennsylvania, correct?
I am. Unfortunately, my team was eliminated already, but I'm a huge hockey fan, and I'm determined to adopt the Hurricanes.
Yep.
And if they lose, then I'll have to adopt somebody else and just move on with it. But I'm really enjoying watching some sports.
Good.
And just enjoying that a little bit. But really the outdoors, the dog and the kids, and just getting outside, being in Carteret County and going to the beach and getting outdoors.
Yeah, we're certainly lucky to live here where we have ample outdoor space to choose from. So yes. Yeah. Dr. Noble, thank you so much for joining us today. We know you are insanely busy, so we really appreciate it.
I know. Thank you so much for taking this time with us. I feel like we got some really good practical tips and just kind of an overview of things. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you for all of your really great questions. It was really great to talk with you.
Awesome. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. We'll see you soon. All right. Bye-bye.
Wow. My brain is full.
I know. I really wanted to go back and ask her, but I knew that we were kind of running out of time. I wanted to say, she listed the different things like alcohol for your keyboard and stuff like that. So then what's in the spray bottle that she really recommends? Maybe we can send her an email and post that.
Yeah. I think that's super smart.
Yeah. Like, I want to know what are the specific things that she recommends to use for cleaning different surfaces.
Me too. I can shoot her an email after we hop off this morning and I think that's really smart, because it might be things that we already have around the house that we can just start to use. But your kids are going back to school next week, right? Or did they go back this week? I was a little bit confused.
So this week was kind of an orientation.
Okay. So they did go back to school, just start school next week.
Yes. It's a little bit staggered.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, you got to do what you got to do. So
I know. Yeah. And actually that is the perfect segue, because I just was thinking while you were talking to Dr. Noble about her, what's saving her life. I was really thinking about what's saving mine. And I think that what's saving mine is just, I think I've just kind of been blown away by, I know that school doesn't look like it's supposed to. And I know that, the teachers are overwhelmed and they're tired. I've spoken to some of my teacher friends, and they said, I'm just nervous about the parents asking me questions that I don't know the answer to. Yeah. And I know that the parents are having to trust that it's all going to work out, and so are the teachers and the administrators. And it's like we were saying about Chapel Hill thing earlier about the folks who had to make that hard decision. I just feel like in the face of all of this, it's just that we're doing it. We're all working together and we're figuring it out, and of course it's different. And yet I feel like people are really coming together and really, just being kind to each other and being patient and trying to make it work for everybody. So I think that's what's saving my life, is feeling like that in the midst of all of this, it's kind of bringing people together instead of tearing them apart.
Absolutely. Oh, that's good. That's really, really good. And really cool that you see that as a parent. And of course, as a parent, you're a little bit nervous to send your kids off to a new situation like this, but that's so comforting to know that our teachers, of course, here in Carteret County, we know we have the best teachers ever.
Okay. Yeah.
teachers all over the country and all over the world, I'm sure, are taking these precautions to keep our kids safe.
Right. That's exactly right. So tell us, what is saving your life?
What is saving my life is that we have 2 new team members. That is the most exciting thing ever, because I'm kind of biased because their names are Annie and Beth, and I hope they're watching. Hello, if you're there. Annie is one of my dear friends. I met her in a spin class. She, of course, she is one of the sweetest persons ever. She joined our team about a week ago, so very excited that Annie's here. And then Beth is our other new team member, and Beth actually played volleyball with me in high school.
I mean, I love that.
Yeah.
All roads lead back to Meg.
Yeah, well, that's the most random one, because we're from Apex, North Carolina. We are not from Carteret County. So the fact that we ended up here, didn't really know each other much throughout college, but then got to reconnect through our job is a really exciting thing. So excited that they're both here. Yeah.
I love that. I really do love that there's a connection somewhere back in there. Yeah. You know, that's so awesome. And both Annie and Beth are just incredible, and we are so grateful to have them. So that's a huge thing.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
That was a good one, Meg. That was a good one.
Thank you so much. But we will meet back next week. We have a very fun guest that we're excited to announce next week. But we will keep you guys on the edge of your seat, and we'll let you know who it is early next week.
Absolutely. Sounds great. Have a great weekend, Meg.
You too, MC. Bye.
Thanks.